BitMex says the coronavirus is Bitcoin's biggest test as the U.S. government's $1 trillion stimulus plan causes a rally in stocks and crypto. The Federal Reserve has slashed interest rates to almost zero in the latest quantitative easing bid. But Tim Draper says Bitcoin and not governments will save the world. And around the world, we've got news from Canada, Japan, Argentina, Venezuela, India, and China. And here at home, one writer speculates what the price of Bitcoin would be if every American bought $1,000 worth. Any guesses? It's another crazy week in the world of crypto, and that makes sense since it's another crazy week in the world. We don't know that we can make sense of it, but we can have fun pretending like we have. And as long as you're self-quarantined, you may as well come along for our Bad News, episode number 384 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition.
Who's bad?
It's the Bad News episode of the Bad Crypto Podcast, now with less bad news.
More banter, less bad news. Just like you like it.
It's just a little badder than it was last week in a good way.
It's getting badder all the time.
Badder. And it's the Bad Crypto Podcast. Welcome, gang. And this is the Bad News episode for the week of, it is March the 20th in the year 2020. And we got lots to talk about today. But before we get to it, I want to let you know about our sponsor, Crypto.com, the only single platform that allows you to buy, sell, store, track, and pay crypto securely in one place. We've got a great interview coming up with their SVP of marketing on an episode here very soonly. But you know what? If you get one of the US MCO Visa cards, you can now make payments with it using Apple, Google, and Samsung Pay. They've added Tezos XTZ to their crypto earn, which means when you have crypto in their wallet, you're earning interest on it up to 8% annually on Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Litecoin, Tether, Pax, and the US dollar coin. Check it out. Sign up for one of their metal Visa cards by staking MCO tokens. It's really easy to do, and they're going to give you $50 in USD. Go to badco.in/crypto. Check it out today. And checking out the crypto market cap timestamp for 10:09 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on this very Friday. We're at 184 billion with Bitcoin up to 6612, Ethereum up to 142, XRP almost 17 cents, dollar, Tether at $1, $1 at Tether too. One Tether is one Tether. Bitcoin Cash 232, Bitcoin SV 167, Litecoin 4130, EOS 240, Binance Coin 1280, and rounding out the top 10, OKB at $4.52. Travis, who are the big winners for the week in the top 100?
Everyone.
We all win.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at this. In the last week, it's been pretty amazing. Wax overall, Wax has gained 96.7%. Steam up 87%. Status up 80%. Oh, and the MCO token that we were just talking about, Mr. Joel Com, up 77%. Engine up 75%. But let's just look at like the regular cryptos. I mean, if you take a look at all the regular ones, like Bitcoin this past week, up 28%, which is really over these last 48 hours. These last 48 hours have been very good to the crypto world. Bitcoin Cash up 54%, Bitcoin SV up 60%, Litecoin 36%, OKB up 72%, and Tezos, as you mentioned, they were up 32% as well. But Tether was only up 1.4%.
Yeah, and of course, a little bit of recovery is good, especially after last week. I mean, that was really brutal. And honestly, I thought that we would see an even bigger dive, Travis. And perhaps I'm speculating that the next pullback happens if more cities and states announce quarantine, right? As it is, California is saying stay inside. New York City is saying stay inside. And I think we're going to see more of that here over the next week or so. I don't know.
I mean, I think Washington State should be saying that, right? Because I mean, just the ones that have the most deaths and the most cases are the ones that, and there's three main countries or main states, right? California, which is kind of its own country, New York, which is also kind of its own country, and Washington State, which kind of its own country. I mean, they're all kind of their own little weird, little different. Stay weird, folks. But yeah, also let's talk about the Bitcoin clock. The Bitcoin clock has changed, Mr. Joe Com. What was it last time? It was going to be May 9th.
I think it was 8th or 9th, and now
it's on the 11th. The Bitcoin halving is in 51 days. And what's funny is Mr. Joe Com's birthday is May 5th. Mine is May 16th. And right now the halving is closer to my birthday.
Can Bitcoin not decide when it's going to do its halving? I mean, can we just nail it down? It's kind of like a pregnancy. It's like, well, we've got this due date, but baby could come early. Baby could be a little late. We might have to induce. Are they going to have to induce the Bitcoin block halving?
Why does it keep changing? Like we talked about this, it's math. Like we should know it precisely to the second when it's going to happen, right? Like how does it keep shifting? It's so strange to me.
I don't know. Maybe we should ask Mati or Pete McCormick or one of those people that are actually smart when it comes to this stuff, because we're obviously not. Or BitcoinClock.com is just messing with us.
That might be part of the thing.
They're like, hey, we got somebody that's talking about us every week. Let's keep moving the dates on these guys.
Yeah.
Drive them absolutely crazy. So here, there's a lot of people prognosticating, and there's a story on Cointelegraph. Of course, Cointelegraph is our news partner site, and they publish our bad news episode each week with an article that we write for them to put up there. So thanks for that, CT. Peter Brandt is a gentleman who is kind of like both Bitcoin and gold are going to race to $1,000. Who's going to get there first? Because gold has dropped from its high this year of about $1,650 to about $1,400. And of course, Bitcoin's dropped from what was it, about 10,000 or so this year?
Like 9,300. I mean, like, right, it was sort of teetering near 10,000, then it was like around 90 something hundred, and then just down to the 70s, 75s, and then all the way down.
We broke 10. You don't remember breaking 10?
I remember broke 10 very quickly and very briefly.
We did break it. So,
but we hit that, but then the coronavirus didn't really impact that yet. I mean, and it was just kind of fluttering, kind of going back, flirting with 10, hitting it a little bit, going back down. And then we were hoping for it to, cruise on up because of the halving. And that didn't happen.
Very good. So Pete's, he's a trader and trade whore, not a trade whore.
Let me add this, Mr. Joe Com, because I would say this article here is 3 days old. So that's really old at this point because crypto hadn't made its comeback a little bit. This article was prior to the last 48 hours when crypto has made a nice little recovery. I mean, it looked like it was still tanking pretty heavy whenever this article came out.
Well, that's true, but it's so unpredictable, right? All it takes is a little good news to move things up. Now, we're seeing these swings that were unprecedented. It was so rare that you used to see a swing of 1,000 points, on the stock exchange in one day. And now it's like up, down 3,000, up 1,000, and it's like this yo-yo. Yeah. And it's all about sentiment.
Well, it is, but it's also like, whenever the stock market had never been near 30,000 before, right? And so whenever you have such big numbers, I mean, think about it. If you're at 30,000 and you drop 3,000, well, you just dropped 10%.
Right.
Right. Now, there's been bigger drops than that. That's happened in the Great Depression and in like October of 1987. There's been bigger drops than 10%, but there's never been, 2,600 point drops in one day or whatever. They're like, oh my God, that's the hugest ever. And you're like, yeah, but it's not even 10%. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's all perspective. And that's the key word that I've really been diving into during this sort of quarantine and isolation thing and just how everything seems to be blown out of proportion, Mr. Joe Com, is let's just keep perspective. On a normal day, today is Friday, on a normal Friday, every single Friday of the year, about 160,000 people die every day. Like, that's 1.1 million people every single week die. And we're talking about this coronavirus thing that has killed less than 10,000 people, and we're acting like it's the end of the world. And I know it's a dangerous thing, and everybody's, we should take precautions. But really, it seems to me that, like, hey, wash your hands, keep your hands clean. Let's be more diligent during this time, because I think now moving forward, people are going to be more conscious about keeping clean potentially and washing their hands and keeping your hands away from your face, because that's really what gets you. You touch stuff and then you touch your face, you touch your nose, you scratch your mouth, and next thing you know, the germ gets in. So don't do that stuff. And then you're probably going to live to see another day. Pretty sure.
I'm rubbing all my facial orifices right now.
Keep your hands out of your ear holes, Mr. Joel Com. Nice.
You're supposed to stop when you feel pressure from the Q-tip. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah?
Before you feel pressure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just trying. I thought that was just an extra big chunk of wax I'm trying to get out.
Came out the other side.
Yeah.
Part of the reason we're seeing the bounce in the markets are because Trump revealed a $1 trillion stimulus package. And they're like, all right, people are losing their jobs, and it's not their fault. They're not being laid off because they did something wrong. They're being laid off because companies are shutting down. These restaurants that are closing, there's a lot of people that are impacted, the retail businesses that are closing. Although I did read that GameStop is saying that they're a necessity during this time and they're staying open because people need video games.
Right.
Pretty funny. But, a lot of services, salons are supposed to be, shutting down in certain regions now. And so the stimulus package is to not only inject money into the economy, but also there's talks of putting cash in every American's pocket, basically giving us our money back. I think the plan that is not official yet is to put $1,000 every 6 weeks that were shut down into every adult's pocket, every tax-paying adults. Well, maybe not. I would say citizens at least, and $500 for each child.
And then also, what's interesting is Maxine Waters proposed one, and the numbers are monthly, and it's $2,000 for every adult and $1,000 for every child each month during this crazy time. So I don't know where that money, they just print money out of thin air. So maybe they're just going to throw it our way.
I really don't know. I
will buy Bitcoin with it if they send it to me. Today,
Mnuchin announced that your taxes, if you're an American citizen, you don't have. First, it was you don't have to pay any owed taxes for 3 months. Now they're saying filing tax day has been moved completely from April 15th to July 15th. So you don't even have to file. Now they are saying if you have money coming back to you, a refund from the government, then go ahead and file and get your monies back. It's your money. You overpaid it, get it back. But otherwise, no penalties, no interest, no extensions. Everybody's extended till July 15th.
Yeah. Well, what would be interesting is that and all that's basically when you're getting that tax refund, people are like, yeah, I got a tax refund. Actually, no, you just gave the government an interest-free loan is what you did.
Paid too much.
Yeah. So what you can actually do is, especially during this time, if you still have a job, you're fortunate to still have one, and you want to bring a little bit more of that home, then you can actually go in and change your deductions from a 0 or a 1 or a 2 and raise it up to an 8 or a 9 or whatever, and your taxes would go down. But you want to make sure to move that back later on. That could eliminate your tax refund for next year, but that's not financial or tax advice. That's just something that you could do if you so choose to do that. Do your own research.
Yeah, don't expect us to do all your research.
I know.
But
Gosh, it was so nice though, Mr. Joe Con, to wake up this morning and see Bitcoin almost hit 7,000. Like I was like, oh yay, we're maybe is this a dead cat bounce? We don't know. It's like it could be. Maybe things are getting better. I don't know, man. It's just a weird time in life.
Well, I think as a society and as an economy, things are going to get worse.
Way worse. Yeah.
People are being impacted, and the trickle down that we're going to have from closing these businesses, we're going to have very high unemployment. Yeah. We're going to have businesses going out of business that aren't going to be able to recover.
Mm-hmm. What could be handy, and some people were just talking, just like, because especially, we thought the homeless epidemic was bad before. Now think of this. It's like, and I think Trump put another thing in that the media is not talking about as well. But he said that no evictions and no foreclosures during this time. Like it's almost like, hey, let's just pause this and then we'll just resume in like 6 weeks. And just like, anything you owed or whatever, just like do a pause. Like don't send families to 5-6 grand or 8 grand or whatever the number is. Just like, how about we just pause things and say, you know what, this is a crazy time in our situation, in our history, in our whole world. We're just going to pause debt because it's all printed out of thin air anyway. So we're just going to pause it, you guys. Resume after you get some life back. And Mr. Joe Com, I think there's some other folks out there who are saying that, maybe governments aren't the ones that are going to help save this. According to Tim Draper here on Cointelegraph, Bitcoin and not governments are going to be what saves the world after this crisis. And, it's going to be Bitcoin, not banks, that will save the day, according to Draper. Entertainment, for while you are holed up, when the world comes back, it will be Bitcoin, not banks and governments that save the day. Well, that sounds nice, doesn't it?
I can't help but hear the Mighty Mouse theme. Here I come to save the day.
Ka-ching.
I'm really kicking myself here because that's an old cartoon, but that's it. That's what Tim is saying, that when the dust settles on this, there's going to be some big problems. And the question right now is crypto decoupling from the stock market and from precious metals? Because at some point, inflation, especially with as much money as being shoved into the economy right now to kind of, keep it alive. And we're going to talk about that more in a moment when we get to the Fed's move. At some point, the dollar is going to collapse. It's something that we've known for some time. Well, how can Bitcoin continue to be coupled to that and act as its own currency when, and we see it happening in Venezuela. And in fact, I think we've got a story about that coming up as well. So we'll just move on here right now, because this story on Cointelegraph from BitMex, which is the world's second largest crypto exchange by volume, they published a analysis of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And basically, they're saying that this financial crash is Bitcoin's biggest test.
Mm. Yeah, I would say it. Now, there was actually some other people who were having some conversations around the fact that if one of the exchanges hadn't gone offline, then Bitcoin could have gone down all the way to zero. I think we were talking about that a little bit last week. And so, here we are, thinking gold's a safe haven, crypto is going to be a safe haven when the markets tank, and then here we are having this financial crash going on in real time, and we saw Bitcoin go all the way down to 3,800 or whatever it was in that flash crash. Well, now it's popped back up to almost 7 grand. I think it's at about 6,500 right now. But there's a lot of these folks out here in the financial world that are saying that this coronavirus crash of the economy could be the biggest opportunity Bitcoin has ever seen. And so, is this the opportunity? Is this the time for stable coins to step up and become reliable for us? Well, what happens when the stable coins are all pegged to the US dollar and the US dollar crashes? Like, that to me seems a little precarious. And then, we've talked about stable coins maybe being tied to gold. Well, gold is even kind of being, a little wishy-washy right now with the prices. I think over time, the price of gold should skyrocket because, for one, for every 1 ounce of physical gold, there's 500 ounces of paper gold out there. So that's always crazy to me. So it seems to me the price of gold and silver should be way higher. And maybe we should have more stable coins that are pegged to gold and silver.
Silver is the real surprise to me, because silver was like $18.50 an ounce just a few weeks ago. It's at 12 and a quarter right now. Yeah. Talk about a dive. If you go to buy silver at one of the online vendors, they're sold out of, like American Eagles and regular silver rounds. You can't get them. The only silver coins they have are the collector's items, the more, higher price ones, like silver that starts at $21 an ounce. And you wouldn't be buying that as a hedge, right?
Right.
still just an ounce of silver with, Darth Vader on it.
Yeah, well, you can still go to like BitMex, and I do believe they have like, in times like this, it's like you don't necessarily have to have the silver eagles. You could go ahead and get yourself some pre-1964 silver quarters or silver dollars or dimes. And there's a couple years in there around World War II when the nickels were made from silver instead of actual made of nickel. And so there are some of those available. It's like, that's how I did mine, is that I got X percentage of the big coins, right? The 1 ounce, the eagles and the Canadian maples and all those. And then, but I've also got like a bunch of $50 that are pre-1964 and a bunch of quarters that are pre-1964, just because those have 90% silver in them. If you look at a coin and it's 1964 or older and it's a quarter or a dime, then there's silver in that. And most people weren't aware of that. So I have
junk silver, right? Isn't that what they call it?
Call it some junk silver, but it's actually, it's silver. It's 90%. So there's actually this website called Coinflation that you can actually go to it. It'll tell you what the calculated amount is for a quarter. And so like right now, a quarter is probably worth about $2, right? Based on maybe a little bit more than $2. I don't know. I'm not going to Coinflation right now, but I remember at one point a quarter was worth over $5 because there's pre-1964 coins. And so it seems to me that would be a lot easier to be like, oh, you know what? This right here is going to cost $5. Well, here's a couple of silver quarters that cover that, because paper money, if that ends up going away or if that ends up crashing, what are you going to use for exchanges? Well, we're going to go back to the barter system with the chickens and the goats and the cows.
Cowrie shells. Well, here's my thing. I think people might be confused. I've often thought about getting some of that junk silver, and I have a small bag of it. Literally, it's a small bag. Some people talk about bags of, but it's a literal sandwich bag of the ones that I've found in my own coins that I've kept. But I wonder, like, okay, let's say things go south and I've got silver and a guy is like, oh, I'll sell you this loaf of bread for $10. And I pull out 2 quarters that are worth $5 each. He's like, well, here you go. That's 50 cents. No, you don't understand. This is worth $10. No, man, that's 50 cents. Right. It's like there's this education that'll need to take place because everybody's programmed to look at our money and think, well, this is the value of that money. And then you got to explain, no, see, this is pre-1964.
Well, I think what would happen is that over time that education would start proliferating through, right? That would. So it's like I have a lot of the Eagles, and I haven't bought silver in a long time. I bought all my silver for the most part back in 2010, 2009 when that last crash was happening. And because I was thinking, man, if things go down, I'd like to have some silver. And to this day, I was like, man, 2009, 2010, buying gold and silver, I should have bought Bitcoin all day.
Who knew? If only we could see the future. I don't know. I guess I'm okay. You roll the dice, you move your mice, and sometimes you get hurt and sometimes you win the game. Let's take a break here for our sponsor, Corona. No, not that Corona. No, there's another Corona that's not killing anybody. The beer?
I do.
Corona beer. Like, I mean, I suppose if you drank a lot of any alcohol, you could be in trouble. But just, for a tasty, cool one, Corona is a name that's been around a long time. Well, the Corona family has entered the online gaming world. Talk about timing, Travis.
Right.
Talk about timing. But they've got prizes. Yep. Tuition, education paid, mortgages cleared, new vehicles, dream Disney vacations for when they open up again. It's easy. Corona Games is the place for you to go check this out. And it's in beta test right now. So they need beta testers. And they are asking us to invite you to go kick the tires at coronagames.com and let us know what you think.
So, Mr. Joe Com, we know we're in like a little crazy time here with this whole coronavirus thing. And one thing that was interesting was last Sunday. Remember the last Sunday, I was sitting there watching the news and watching all the different stuff that's going on. And the Federal Reserve, they made an emergency announcement last Saturday afternoon that they were cutting interest rates to 0 for the first time since the financial crisis. Now, They had, what was it, like it was at 1.25%, and they could have walked it down. They could have walked it down from 1.25 to 1, and then the 0.75 and the 0.5 and then the 0.25 and then down to 0. But you and I were having a conversation. They sort of blew their wad all at once and said, we're going all the way down to 0 right now. And you would expect the stock market to start roaring back at news like that. Typically, that's what's always happened. But what ended up happening was on Monday, it tanked even further. So it was like that was what started precipitating some of the more panic and the fear and people going, oh no, wow. The Fed just did what they could do to bump the economy, and the opposite happened. Well, now we're starting to see a little bit of recovery here because I think maybe because of that news about the malaria drug that's giving some people some hope or something. But it was interesting how the Fed ended up moving it on a Sunday, Mr. Joel Comm.
Mm-hmm. But that's it. What are they going to? You can't cut any more than to 0. And what
you go negative. That's what happens in other countries, Mr. Joel Comm, is they go negative, and then it costs you money to put your money in the bank. So if I store $1,000 and they're going to have a percentage points or whatever, then I don't have 1,000. I have 900 and some odd dollars in there.
Why would anybody do that? Why?
What happens when you get the negative interest rates? I mean, we talked about this in the Everything Bubble. It covers that. That whole book covered everything on that. And it talks about what happens when you go to negative interest rates. It costs you money. They take your money whenever you leave it in the bank. And I'm telling you, Mr. Joel Comm, let me ask you this, because I have an opinion on this. How long do you think until we start seeing maybe some runs on banks, people going there and freaking out and going and trying to take all their money out, like what happened in the crash in the 20s?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guarantee you people are already going to the bank to get money, liquid cash in hand. I don't know that they're saying close my account. It's not like It's a Wonderful Life, with George Bailey or anything. But I heard, and I can't remember which one it was, but some major U.S. bank has said that they're setting a limit of $10,000 on withdrawals. So, I think as long as stores stay open and the government does respond by adding stimulus to people's pockets in the form of cash rebates, that maybe, they've got to be watching that. That would be a nightmare scenario, right? And we can't afford for that to happen. But it's interesting.
It is interesting. And I was just thinking of this now, Mr. Joel Comm. So they're talking about giving us all $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever, depending on how many kids we have and whatever and whatnot. But that would be a good time to airdrop the USD Fed coin on people or whatever and say, hey, you know what? Just mass, you're going to forced mass adoption of crypto. But then that's sort of the forced adoption of crypto is precarious as well, because then here you are, now you have to use this. And then when you start getting in a scenario like that, that's a little freaky. So I think like a little hybrid of US dollar paper money and crypto money, or just say, screw all that. And just, Bitcoin seems to me to be working pretty good. Let's just roll with Bitcoin.
There's an interesting article here on bitcoinist.com by Christina Combin, and she says, with Americans set to get back $1,000, I think it's for a 6-week period, which is kind of similar to Andrew Yang's proposed UBI, the Universal Basic Income, which I think this is different than just giving people a standard income. I think that this is an extreme scenario, and since people can't work, because of something beyond their control, then the government's going to say, "Here's some of your money back."
Yeah, this isn't a UBI. This is an OSI. Income. Pretty much.
Well, so what she speculates is, what if everybody who got their $1,000 bought Bitcoin with it? And somebody ran the math on it, given the current price of Bitcoin at the time when this was written. It was 5,300, not 6,500 like it is right now. But if everybody were to do that, Bitcoin would be driven up to almost $22,000.
Yeah, so here it is. So it's like there are 300 plus million Americans, each buying 1,000 worth of Bitcoin would give Bitcoin a market cap of 300 billion divided by 18 million coins is 16.6 thousand, plus the current price of 5.3 gives the total number of 21.9. So maybe that's maybe that's the case. I don't know, but that's some random person on Twitter that came up with that math. So who knows? I mean, it would push it past 20,000. I would say if there was a run on Bitcoin like that, most likely it would skyrocket way beyond that particular price. If everybody's buying it, then guess what? They're not just spending 1,000. They're probably spending additional amounts of money on that too. So I would say that number is probably way lower than that. But again, it's just all conjecture.
Mentioned U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin earlier.
Did you mention Mnuchin?
His name is mentioned in Mnuchin. Mnuchin. Like, why not just Munchin? Or why
Munchin? Not? Just give up. Just give it up. Just be Munchin. Because I'm like, dude, you're hungry. I'm munching. I know.
Munching all the time. So he's not a huge fan of crypto and been a skeptic towards Bitcoin, but he is hiring Brian Brooks as the next COO and first deputy comptroller of the Office of Comptroller of the Currency. So this guy was the chief legal officer at Coinbase.
Boom. That to me is good news because we've been freaking out about, Mnuchin and how he was hating on crypto. And now he went and hired the chief legal counsel from Coinbase. Mm-hmm. That is great. To me, dude, that's great news. This is maybe the best news out of all of this so far today.
Well, this guy wrote in Fortune magazine last November, the time has come for a tokenized version of the dollar. Weren't you just saying that? And it's not just those of us in cryptocurrency world who think so. In recent months, senior U.S. officials have been exploring the idea of minting greenbacks on the distributed ledger software known as blockchain. The idea appears inevitable. Well, duh.
Well, dude, money is dirty, dude. Like I was even noticing when I was getting it out of the ATM the other day, and I was just like, and I have like some like Kleenexes. Where I was just like, okay, I'm gonna grab that off of there and not touch it right now because I don't know where that money has been, how many strippers' asses it's been in, and whatever else. So I'm just gonna sit. Which I would never even think about that before. Like, so that's one thing I think that is going into people's consciousness is. Everything is dirty. I just watched this video last night by this dude named Mark Roper on YouTube, and it was talking about how germs spread. And he used this glow paint stuff that you can't see on your hands, but he wiped it on his hands and the teacher's hands, and then the teacher went and shook like 2 or 3 kids' hands, and then they painted one other kid's hand, and then at the end of the day, at the end of like 8 hours, they went around with a black light. And then showed everyone, and like as they had touched everything they touched, and you could just see this glow paint everywhere on people's faces. Almost every kid had stuff on their face because they'd interacted with different people, and they had touched something, and so it's just like germs are so easy to pick up. But the only thing is that if you don't touch your mouth or touch your nose, it won't get up there normally. So that's the problem. That's where it is that. And then most people when they wash their hands. I watched actually a surgeon how they wash their hands is when they're washing their hands, then they sort of turn their hands around and just scrub their fingertips in their palms because all the germs are on your fingertips, and then they grab their thumb and roll around on their thumb and get the end of the thumb and all around the thumb whenever they wash it off, you get all the germs off. I've never done that before. I've like washed my hands, and you think about like, oh yeah. I kind of do miss my fingertips probably most of the time. And so people are learning how to do things correctly, which over time, when we have a normal year of 30 to 50, 80,000 people in the U.S. dying of the flu and worldwide anywhere between 250 and 500,000 people every year dying just of the flu, us having this information and being aware and washing our hands better and not touching our face, that's just good practice that'll lower the death rates in future years, I would assume.
Very true, Mr. Travis Wright. Well, let's go around the world and do a quick roundup of what's going on. This story here on Cointelegraph, Chinese journalist shares report on COVID-19 on Ethereum bypassing the censorious nation. So they're basically, not wanting to circulate information about corona. China's been bad about it for a long time. Sarah Zhang is a journalist for the South China Morning Post, and she interviewed this doctor there in China about coronavirus, and she published it outside of traditional publishing means. She put it on the Ethereum blockchain.
She just attached it. Nice. That's a way, I think, to get, what'd you say, the censorious? Is that a word?
Censorious.
Is
Yes.
that nice? That's a good use of that. I've never
Thank you.
used that before. But I mean, that's one of the things, and I don't want to get political in this whole thing, but think about this: is that whenever you have a communist nation, especially China, they like to save face. They don't want people to know their problems. They want they want everybody to think everything is great. And so when that coronavirus first revealed itself in like late October, early November, or whenever it was, we don't really know. Like, if they would have put the clamp down early on, none of this would have happened. But since they just sort of ignored it, then they were shutting down journalists, and they were shutting down doctors who were talking about it, and they were saying, no, you can't say that, censoring them. Some of them who are never going to be heard from again. And that's just kind of the danger when you get into a socialist or communist sort of nation where you got dictators in charge of things, and they are not free flowing with the information. So a lot of the world was flying blind on this, what we were even dealing with. And then since they didn't stop anything, they didn't shut their borders down, and knowing that it could get out, people just flew all over the world, and here we are now.
And speaking of socialists and dictators, we got them in this hemisphere as well. We mentioned Venezuela earlier, and essentially the president there, Nicolas Maduro, not a good guy, has created a countrywide quarantine to slow the spread of COVID-19, and they have shut down their national banking system indefinitely. And that means there's a spike of Bitcoin use. And their people are not adopting the petro there. They're not doing it. They are turning to Bitcoin.
Yeah, why would they want to adopt the petro? Because the petro basically takes away their future, the citizens' future wealth, because it's leveraging the oil that's in the ground now. And Maduro's already taken away a lot of the wealth, and now the petro is basically tied to the wealth of the oil in the ground, which is the future generations' potential wealth. So I would look at that negatively as well. Now, they have a countrywide quarantine to slow the spread of this disease. They have 33 cases of coronavirus there confirmed already as of March 17th. And now they're shutting the banking system down indefinitely. And so, yeah, that seems to me that, they're going to go around that and use crypto more and more. So local Bitcoins listing have showed that Venezuelans they're offloading their tokens at half of their supposed value with the petro. So it shows them that they have petro and the value is 60, but they're getting rid of them at $30. So they're not valuing those things at all.
And now not time warping, just warping to this continent, our friends north of our border here in Canada. These two dudes that are Canadian citizens, 23 and 24-year-old, basically were going on Twitter and impersonating Hit BTC support as customer service reps. They created the handle Hit BTC Assist, and they watched for people asking for support on the real Hit BTC Twitter account, and then they jumped in and offered support, and they stole 23.2 Bitcoins from these people. They scammed them basically because they asked them to email them sensitive information, their keys essentially, and they took their Bitcoin. Well, these two punks are now going to spend 24 months in prison for money laundering and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. What's up there in Canada, eh? Don't be stealing the Bitcoins from the peoples.
Yeah, so they stole 23.2 Bitcoins that are worth right now $119,000, and they're ordered to pay restitution of $184,000. So that's good. That's unlike what happens to banks, though. Normally, if they get in trouble, it's like, oh, you did this? Okay, well, you're worth $80 billion. We're going to make you pay a fine of $500 million. Okay. Okay. We scammed a lot of people out of this and that, but I'll pay the little fine. Here, the fine is way more than they actually stole. So, and then one of the dudes immediately after the theft went and bought a Mercedes Benz, and then also gambled tens of thousands of dollars away in Vegas. And so he was actually arrested in Vegas. And there you go.
So you can solve this problem. Don't be a douchebag. That's basically it. Don't steal from people. Go make your own way in the world. Why you got to be like that? Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're wise. You might be smart enough but they weren't smart enough to avoid getting caught. So I guess they weren't smart or wise.
You know what? I'll say that, the way you just said right there, it's good to be, a lot of people out there are smart, but they're not wise. And I think like even in my youth when I was a young person, it's like I know I could figure shit out quicker than other people, and I know I could find loopholes. And it's like, and I know that my biological dad, he's a little bit dark. He's been in prison, so it's like I know I had a little bit of a dark side, and it's a conscious. I remember like I was early 20s, like maybe 23, 24, and I said, I'm not going to embrace this dark side that I have. I'm not going to do bad things. I know I could probably get away with some of this, but I'm not going to do it because it's just not safe, and it's not smart to do. So don't embrace your dark side, folks.
Did your dad ever say, Travis, I am your father?
No, he didn't. He said, Travis, I don't know who the hell you are. I'm getting the hell out of here. True story.
Back to the other side of the world in India, the Indian ministry is investigating Bitcoin businesses. The regulations there are still not in place. And you guys can read more about this in the show notes for this episode. In fact, all of the stories that we're talking about today can be found at badco.in/384. And, there's a lot of companies and a lot of countries, rather, that are trying to figure out how to leverage blockchain best. And in Argentina, the government blockchain was hacked, and people are using it to spread fake news on coronavirus. How's that work?
Yeah, so Mr. Joe Com, it looks like on March 14th that, we got this whole crazy coronavirus thing going on, but the Argentine government had a hack on their website that was allegedly based on blockchain technology, and they inserted false statements inside the blockchain about coronavirus, freaking out a whole bunch of people, and then sent it out on the newsletter system or something crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. And blockchain doesn't mean that something's true just because it's on blockchain. It just means that whatever's been put there is verified that it's there, but it doesn't make what's put there true if we're talking about content, right? Transactions they're true, but if somebody's publishing content just because it's on blockchain doesn't mean that content is accurate. And so people are going to people. They're always going to find ways to mess things up.
Hey, again, this just in, Mr. Joel Com. I want to add this into the show notes as well. Sent over by our good friend Matthew Marcus. So I actually know this dude here in Kansas City. So this just popped up. Italian bank opens Bitcoin trading to 1.2 million during the lockdown. With the growing crypto adoption and then the whole coronavirus outbreak, now it has encouraged Italy's Banco Sella to launch a Bitcoin trading service. And so there's a 1.2 million. They use this thing called Hype, which was what Banca Stella uses. They carry out transactions but not only to buy and sell Bitcoin, they've also been able to pay for goods and services with the cryptocurrency. So since Italy is going in lockdown and people can't pay for stuff and it's making it difficult, Banco Stella is like, okay, we're going to allow you guys to buy and sell Bitcoin. And the general manager there said, the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin market in particular continues to arouse interest, especially among the public that constitutes our customer base, by definition, young and smart, and who increasingly expect to be able to access the world through the tool that they use to manage money on a daily basis. So it looks like Italy is now creating there's new startups and stuff popping up there, especially with this worldwide pandemic going on. People are like, how do we access our money? What do we do? How do we make it easy? I don't want to touch money. Crypto. Boom.
Crypto is the answer. Like Tim Draper says, it's going to save the world. But you know what? This social distancing thing is definitely having an impact on all of the blockchain conferences out there. We were supposed to be heading to Bitcoin 2020 in San Francisco at the end of this month. That's not happening. And Consensus in New York for May is postponed. And now the largest blockchain conference in Japan is postponed. It's the Teams Blockchain Summit, was going to happen April 22nd, 23rd. They're moving it to September. And so all of these companies, if you're with one of these companies that was going to go to a conference to try to get the word out, you can't. Well, guess what? We're still here. content creators that, are talking about blockchain and Bitcoin, there's opportunities. So reach out to us at badcryptopodcast@gmail.com. And maybe in lieu of being able to sponsor a conference, you could sponsor this show.
So also here on the news from Cointelegraph. Now, this is actually from magazine.cointelegraph.com, which is really interesting. They have some immersive reads over there that you might not have seen. Immersive meaning really long articles that go in depth. So I would go check out magazine.cointelegraph.com. But they have an article over there about China's digital yuan and how it's an economic cyber weapon and how the U.S. is disarming it because China is developing its central bank digital currency, and the U.S. Federal Reserve sees no need for a dollar parallel, at least right now. And that was before they hired the Coinbase guy. So maybe that's going to change. But really in-depth article here about about the Chinese yuan and how they're actually converting that into a crypto with their central bank digital currency. So you may want to check that out. It's pretty interesting.
I just want to say, Travis, that this episode has had at least 50% less bad dad jokes. And so that's a bad dad joke warning for you right now, because I was watching a Cheap Trick concert online just yesterday. In fact, while I was here doing some eBay stuff, had Cheap Trick going on in the background. And I'm like, China should just hire them to promote their currency. And their new tagline should be, I want you to want me.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I got to laugh. That was worth the setup. I mean,
you might want to put that on. Might want to put that on the show. Then you might want to put that on the playlist.
Absolutely, yeah. You could have groaned there, and you didn't. You laughed. So, all right, let's move on then. Mr.
I apologize. I meant
Yeah, they groan.
So, folks, here's the interesting thing here. MakerDAO. They said the MakerDAO auction is happening, and hear what to expect. So, MKR is the MakerDAO community, and they have locked in an auction to cover a multi-million-dollar hole in the DIA collateral after the Ethereum crash. So what was happening on this thing is like somebody did a loan for, I think, $200 and some odd thousand worth of Ethereum. And then the price, they said, here's my collateral, $200 and some odd thousand worth of Ethereum. And I want $140,000 back. And then what ended up happening was the price of Ethereum tanked. And so if that guy wanted to get his Ethereum back, he would have had to put in another $200 and some odd thousand to be able to get his Ethereum back, or to actually put in more Ethereum. Dude, it's just such a crazy thing. These different sort of things with this DeFi stuff. We've seen that there's been loopholes in these things so far that people have taken advantage of. I'm going to do a loan and then I'm going to do this, and then pay it back. And then you made more money back. And so somebody actually borrowed a lot of money from them, and then Ethereum tanked. And then the loan is basically the money that he had was worth more than his Ethereum that he had put in there at that point. So I don't know, man. It's just really crazy. And then he's got to pay that money back, but now his collateral is worth less. So they're doing some stuff over there to try to fix this, because there's been high Ethereum gas prices, a huge rapid price decline. It has wreaked havoc on MakerDAO's system. So there's a blog post on here from Cointelegraph, but there's actually a blog post from the Maker Foundation that really goes into this whole thing, and to help people maybe escape liquidation, some of the problems we're having over there.
Escape liquidation
in a world.
Yeah, sounds like a TV show or a motion picture.
It's craziness.
Absolutely. You know what's not crazy? eToro's not crazy. They got a wide variety of cryptos for trading, and you could build a diversified portfolio with 14 of the most popular coins. They've got the copy trader feature. Basically, you can automatically copy trades of top crypto traders. Find the smart money there. $0 commission trading, social trading. It's all there. Check it out today. badco.in/eToro. eToro.
Da, comrade.
By the way, Travis, since we started the show, Bitcoin's down $200.
Oh, I blame you, Mr. Julcam.
Actually, let me go pop over to CoinGecko right now. And because, depending where you go, Cointelegraph shows you one thing and everybody pulls different numbers. So on CoinGecko.com, which pulls the averages, Bitcoin is currently at 64.27. Who knows where it'll be by the time you hear the show?
Yeah.
Could be 5,000, could be 8,000. Nobody knows. The crypto markets are crazy.
It could be exactly the same.
That would be weird if it was exactly the same. Hey, Travis, we got a new review on Facebook. Chris Garcia said, "Whoa, this is an awesome show with great interviews and news." Thanks, Chris.
Nice.
And we'd love to hear from you guys as well. Go ahead and drop a review on iTunes or on Facebook or any of the places that let you write reviews. And please share this podcast, especially if you're quarantined, right? You're stuck inside, you're doing something, you're listening to the show, you're like, oh, you know what? I got family and friends and business associates who should be listening to the show also. And so let them know about it. And what else do they need to know, Trev? I got nothing.
Well, I just want to say, as you guys are embracing your social distancing, just realize that it might just be that you're just an amazing hermit. You're able to handle this thing very well. I've discovered my new superpower. I discovered I don't need to be around anyone.
Ever.
I don't let me just do a Zoom call. I'll say hello. If I need to pay somebody, crypto. Well, go ahead. You can deliver right to my door. I'll pay you crypto, deliver right to my door. You're never going to see me at a crypto event again. No one will ever get a handshake from me ever again. Fist bumps and elbow bumps for life, baby.
Just in fact, don't even be at the door when you drop the food. Just ding dong ditch, ring the doorbell, drop the food and go. Travis doesn't even want to see your face.
I don't want to see your face. I don't want to make you laugh. I don't want to crack jokes. Done. Social distancing myself.
You're bad, Travis.
Thanks.
Yeah. And for everybody out there, you follow Travis's example and stay bad.
Who's bad?
The Bad Crypto Podcast is a production of Bad Crypto LLC. The content of the show, the videos, and the website is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice of any kind. You shouldn't make any decisions as to finances, investing, trading, or anything else based on this information without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional financial advisor. Please understand that the trading of Bitcoins and alternative cryptocurrencies have potential risks involved. Anyone wishing to invest in any of the currencies or tokens mentioned on this podcast should first seek their own independent professional financial advisor.